The aim of the documentary is to explore the gradual change towards Hindu death practices in contemporary Singapore. Being a multiracial and religious population, Singapore is well known for the country's harmonious society. Cultural beliefs and ritual practices within the diverse communities in Singapore are usually passed down from one generation to another through various means. Practices passed down to younger generations share a common intention of ensuring that the collective identity of the group remains distinctly rooted to their cultural origins. The Hindu death practices observed in Singapore is just one good example that demonstrates it. To comprehend the changes that had contributed to the contemporary Hindu death practices, the documentary will explore the following procedures adopted in the local Hindu death practices. Firstly, it will be embalming and cleansing of the body, followed by the cremation, and last but not least would be sea burial and gaining karma for the deceased. Before we proceed to the main objective, we must bear in mind that the Hindu community is not a racial group. Therefore, the Hindus mentioned in the context of this documentary are not all Indians, and neither are all Indians in Singapore Hindus. Instead, the Hindus in this context refer to the people belonging to the Hindu religious community. Although Hinduism perspective towards life after death might have already taken various forms as the teachings of Hinduism have assimilated and localized with the local culture, the key beliefs and idea of the religious teachings remain unchanged. One of the key beliefs is the teaching of samsara, where the cycle of birth and death is endless. They view that death is not the opposite of life nor birth, but life and death are the key to the passage of the cycle of samsara. The other that remain unchanged is karma, which concern the amount of good and bad deeds the person had done during their life. However, it could also be affected by the good and bad deeds the deceased family had accumulated for them in their name after passing on. As the Hindu community in Singapore continues to perceive any practices that are in relation with death to be a great taboo, there is minimal to little visual footage and recorded evidence on the Hindu death practices since the independence of the nation. Attempts to take videos and photographs of the death practices were strongly refrained as it was deemed to be disrespectful to the dead. Thus, the documentary relied heavily on oral interviews with the Hindu community to achieve a better understanding towards the death practices. Hinduism believes that autopsy would disturb the peace of the soul. Is autopsy strongly discouraged by the local Hindus?
I won't say it's true, but we do abide by the law. If cases, if in certain cases death is due to injury or killings, murders, and all that, so it's allowed. We respect the law, and if the law says that we need to, in order to find out how this person died, we need to open and see, and there's no restriction. If it's
Autopsy, we can't stop them because they need to find out what is the cause of death. So, because if a person died without any reason, we cannot claim the family we cannot claim anything like the disease. So they will bring them to the autopsy. So they will check what's the cause of death, heart attack, asthma.
Despite being highly discouraged to practice autopsy on the deceased, the community is required to do so whenever necessary to ensure the death of the deceased is accountable for administrative purposes.
If the person passed away in HDB, we will put it in at home. We will call an embalmer come back.
Then
Then they will come there. Then everybody will leave the house. Only the embalmer and the deceased will be inside. So they embalm the body inside the house. I mean, about a decade ago, it used to do it at home. The embalming all done at home. But now after the SARS, NEA stopped everything. So every disease have to bring back to parlour for embalming. We have to collect the body first, the disease first, then we straight bring to embalming. Yeah, it's our embalmer, our professional embalmers is there in our parlours. So you send the disease to them. So they will cleanse everything, they embalm, drain out the blood, everything. So they will do the makeup and changing clothes, everything will be done. So the next procession, we will bring them disease to the home or parlour. We will send them there. So the first day procedure is just a normal ritual will be done. The second day is the original ritual. We have to bathe the body. Those milk, turmeric powder, sandaram powder, vibhuti, it's all the things like orange juice, lemon juice, then the Gange water and rose water. Shipped it to India, then we buy it from Singapore.
although some of the Hindu death practices continue to undergo changes, the key essentials that are used to prepare the deceased for cremations remain unchanged.
यही माँ हर प्रकार से हम सभी की रक्षा करती हैं। आइए माँ का इस प्रकार से आशीर्वाद लेते हुए माँ के पावन मधुर नाम का जय घोष करते हैं। प्रेम जोड़े श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, श्री दुर्गा महारानी की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी माता।
People today, our HDB flats all are very small because in funeral our community gathers. That's where we also come in to help. So if the house is too small, some people prefer to do it in the funeral parlor. Whereas in India, the houses all are big. So once the person passes away, demise, the body will be taken out of the house immediately. First, must try and cremate on the same day. You cremate on the same day because once the soul leaves, this body they call nashwar in Hindi, means it's meant to be destroyed and go back to the five elements. Made by the five elements, it should go back to the five elements. So no point keeping it. It serves no purpose anymore once the soul leaves. So try and get rid of it as fast as possible. There are people besides the religious.
Therefore, ensuring that the people's living environment remains sanitized and free from exposure to chemicals used in the process, embalming are now done in funeral parlors to prevent the spread of any contagious diseases between the dead and the living.
Cremation. We spend quite a lot of money also in the cremation because the process, the amount of perfume, sandal, wood, sandal powders, turmeric, this gugun, they call ether, is like some kind of perfume. To promote the burning process, it also suppresses if there is any smell. Good smell of body.
That was many years ago, about 30 years ago or what. But many years ago, they got this with the wood burning at Mount Vernon.
How?
Corner of, last time the Mount Vernon parlour, right? Now it's before that. Before the Mount Vernon crematorium, they used to use the wood to burn the dead.
Food is not allowed in the house. And other than that, there are so many other aspects of it, like the person who does the cremation, who is normally the son of the demise, the eldest son or the youngest son. So the person who touches the body, who actually cremates the body, have to follow a few more rites and rituals. We had SARS here in Singapore. Before SARS, yes, we used to carry, and then son also will be one of them. He will be the last one to push in. But after the stars is all automated. So there is a hall. They will put the body there. Everybody, and he will do some prayers. There also got one ritual to do. He will do the prayers and with the person who is supposed to cremate and the family. The guys will be all there. Normally ladies were not allowed those days. But today the ladies also doing. And for the Hindus there is the riverside, the holy riverside in India. How much things you want to put in cremating the body of your loved one, so it depends on how much you can afford. Okay. In India, the cremation is not so simple like Singapore. You put on the hearse and straight away right there and electrically cremated and all that. Normally, everybody live in villages or cities. They go to the riverside and do the cremation.
Rude, fire, dangerous.
Scary. So normally it's far. The rivers are far from the cities and all that. So it takes time. Normally, in some cases, people leave in the morning and leave in the evening. The riverside cremation. Cremation work is done, or rather was done. Today, there also we have both options, electric and wood both. So those days, wood were used for cremating. And you're not supposed to leave the body until it's fully cremated. Put at the riverside at the bank, and you set a fire. You put the body on it, and you start cremating. You add in more ghee, more material they will add, so it works better. You cannot leave the body while it's still burning, and you go back. So it's scary also. Sometimes you see the thing burn and piece by piece will start to drop. All these are visible, yes, because our country is very small. We have a designated place, only one place, Pandai crematorium for the Hindus and the Buddhists, cemeteries for the Christians and the Muslims. That's it. Places are there, you know where to go.
Outbreak of SARS prevented the oldest child of the deceased to personally push the deceased into the furnace to reduce any opportunity for any diseases to spread between the dead and the living. Introduction of an automated machine to transport the deceased into the furnace at the Mandai crematorium continues to maintain a sanitized distance between the deceased and the family.
हम तेरे ही गुण गाते हैं चरणों में शीश झुकाते हैं तेरी जयकार मनाते हैं जय जय अम्बे जय जगदम्बे हर मया कीर्तन के दो भंडार भरे तो पतितों का उद्धार कर
Our Hindus, they will carry the coffin, they will push. After that, they stop. Now, mission is on. Our cremation is the maximum is 6 o'clock Singapore. If too much means we will got cremation at 8:45 9 p.m. for Hindu. Same goes to Chinese if the thing is fully booked in one day So we will tell them our timing is this. So we have to finish it by this time. We have to leave this time so that we can reach to the crematorium for the cremation. Because that's the reason because we Hindu after 40 days, you know why they're giving us 40 days? Because we use the water pot. Then our flowers will be everywhere spread. So the next is will be the Christian funeral or Chinese funeral. So they don't want the place to be dirty. Or Christian, they don't want the place to be dirty. They need to be clean. So that's why for Hindus it's after 4:30 till 9 p.m.
During the Hindus' last rites, water pots containing flowers are broken as a form of last farewell to the deceased. The extra time needed to ensure that the place is thoroughly clean, removing all the shatter pots to prepare the venue for the next day's booking, justifies the rationale why the timings available for Hindu cremation are usually held after 4 p.m.
Okay, so it takes a day to cool the ash. So the next day when you go, the ash is still warm. They will carry the ash, and there is a small little ceremony. Then they will mix with flour and all that, and perform a prayer, and then it's dispersed into the holy river actually in India, in Ganges. But here, the mother of all holy river is our sea. Every river falls into it. So it's also the holiest of. Some people will pack a bit of the ash and bring India, and they will disperse it in the Ganges or Yamuna, Saraswati, or this what I tell you. There are so many holy rivers there. They will disperse in those rivers. Bulk of it is dispersed here in Changi. Changi village, you know, Changi village. We will hire a boat, a palm boat, go in the middle of the sea, and we will disperse the ash.
We scattered last time we used to walk to the waters of the sea water, and we will put down the sea 3 times. But after that, when the wave come back, the port slop will come back to the sea back, the shore.
Okay.
So after that, the cleaners there will throw it into the dustbin. So there's no, because they just don't care. They want to clean the place only. What. That's why we already practice this by going in the one boat, center of the seaside, we will pushing it into the water. The bum boat we will go to the Changi village point. Sea burial, they believe that the ash will go through all the 7 seas.
Okay.
So when they rebirth, is what they say is they will get a good karma or what, recognition.
They have just next to the sea. They have 3 different cremation places. If the family can afford to pay more, they will have all the woods down there standby for them to cremate. And those who can afford more, they have the sandalwood. So they have a lot of convenience next to the seaside, whereby we don't have. We are doing exactly what they're doing. They do in the sea burial, after the cremation they do in the sea. We do it exactly the same. We collect all the ash back and put in the pot, and we also send back to sea. It's the same, it's only that they have convenience, we don't have.
Instead of releasing the ashes from the beach, Hindu sea burials are now done off the shores of Changi to avoid the ashes and bones from being washed back to the beaches where recreational activities are held. While the method of scattering the ashes into the sea have changed over the years, the rationale of sea burial remains unaffected and safeguarded.
There are a bit of differences due to the people have come up with their own versions. According to the Shastra, is the same everywhere. And according to the Shastra, feeding the cow and all that means doing a good deed. You don't have to feed the cow. If you don't have a cow, you feed the poor. A lot of people here, they will donate to the Ramakrishna Mission or some orphanage. They will donate food, money, clothes, everything. So you have to do a good deed for the peace of the soul who has been departed, who has left.
The approach towards this part of the practice differs from one family to another. The practice of feeding the poor or animals is motivated by karma, but the rationale behind these practices is generally to gain good karma for the deceased who would reincarnate to become any living organism. Based on the interviews, it was observed that there isn't the existence of a strict set of death practices that the Hindus had to abide to. In addition to the knowledge imparted from the older generation, the Hindu death practices observed in Singapore has undergone transformation to assimilate to the local environment and culture. Although death-related matters continue to experience changes in the approach towards specific death practices in Singapore, certain elements of the Hindu death practices remain untouched and preserved. The practices mentioned in this documentary are just a portion of their Hindu death practices in Singapore. There are still many more required steps in preparation for a typical Hindu decease in Singapore.
पालन पोषण करती है और बुद्धि बन करके सबको अच्छा मार्ग दिखाते हैं। यही माँ हर प्रकार से हम सभी की रक्षा करती है। आइए माँ का इस प्रकार से आशीर्वाद लेते हुए माँ के पावन मधुर नाम का जय घोष करते हैं। प्रेम जोड़े श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, श्री दुर्गा महारानी की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी माता की जय, श्री सरस्वती माता की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय।